Welcome to Vue Router. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to create links with RouterLink. You should be able to create nested routes with RouterView. So let's start fresh. Only a couple of us. So we're going to do Vue create. This one's going to be Burkwire. And I'm going to say we should have router, Vuex, CSS preprocessors, and that's fine. Yes, 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 yes. Fine. Enter all the way through. Oh, hello, Arena.
Hello.
So we just did a Vue create on Burkwire, and doesn't matter. Bjork, it could be Bjorkwire. I'm not picky. And we're going to npm run serve, and we're going to vim. As is my way, I'm going to clear out some boilerplate. So I'm going to get rid of the logo. I'm going to get rid of this component. In Vue Router, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of all the routes. We'll just start fresh. Going to get rid of the About view. Going to get rid of the Home view. And then we're going to delete everything but the app wrapper. As long as you have Vue Router, you're fine. Yes. Because I don't like the default. Then over here. Yep, just enter all the way through it. And where's this being served from? 8082. All right. So get this far. No.
I was like,
Did you get the update for it?
yes.
That's your problem.
I don't know. That was the only solution I
So,
had.
at least I think it updated. The window is no longer responsive. Will you delete hello world?
Just drop.
You're deleting absolutely everything. All the routes, all the components, all the views. All we have is app.js, and it looks like, or app.vue, it looks like that. All right, moving on. So, our first objective, create links with router link. So to create links, we need routes to link to. So let's kind of take a look at what a route is. Over in our router index.js file, we have this empty routes array. A route, at minimum, has 3 things. It has a path. It has a name. And it has a component. You can read this like so. When the path matches this, render this component. Or even better, this is my favorite way to think of it. When the route we're on is index, show this. And make this show up in the URL bar. All that packaged together, that's a route. Now where, Kyle, where oh where will these routes show up? I'm so glad you asked. They show up wherever we tell them to. And we tell them to show up with the router view component. The way that I think of router view is it tears a hole through a component so that you can show another component inside of it. So if, for example, this is app.view, and we have bork wire right here, and we want every other view that we route to show up here, then we put a router view right there, and then any matching view shows up inside of here. It's like we tore a hole through app.view. And whatever component matches shows up inside of this. So we're gonna make a couple of views, real easy ones. We're going to touch source views about.view. We're going to touch views products.view and we're going to touch views. We'll make one called buddies.view. So you got 3 empty views. In the about one, we make a template. It says h2 about. That's it. We don't need anything else. Then we're going to make one for buddies. That's the same thing with buddies. And then we're going to make one for products. That's the same thing, except it's products. Questions about what we've done so far? 3 views, not much to them. Now, over in our router, we need to bring in these views and make routes for them. So we can do import about from @/views/about, and then products and buddies. So now we need to make routes for all 3 of these. As a reminder, a route consists of a path, a name, and a component. So for the first one, the path will be about. The name, how about also about? And then the component, that about component that we imported up here. It's literally that easy. So then we'll make this one products, this one products, and that one the products component. Make this one buddies, buddies, buddies.
For the path, do you have to have a slash?
Nope. Don't have to. I don't think it gets mad at you if you do it, but.
Okay.
Cool. So we have those components. We have the routes made for those. But right now, there's nowhere for, well, and then they show up inside this router view. So anytime we route to one of those components, it swaps out router view for that component, basically. Now, we also need a way to link to those. That's our objective here, is creating links with router link. So I'm going to put this h1 in a header, and I'm going to make a nav here, and the nav's going to have a list of links. And each one is going to be a router-link. And a router link is basically an anchor tag. And in fact, that's exactly what it turns into once we're done. So if I want to link to that products page, I do that. And then there's one prop that we pass into router link that we really care about, and it's 2. So we're going to bind 2, and then we're going to pass it an object. And we're going to tell it the name of the component that we want to go to. So we say the name is products. And even with that, hey, check that out. I have a link there. It goes to /products, and when I click on it, product shows up right there. And if I do that for the other two, I want to link to buddies and a boot. And now I have those links. Routing. That's really it. So when we make this link to that route name, go over to the router, we find the route that's named that, we update the URL bar to be /products. This products component renders in place of that router view. That's 80% of Vue Router right there. Yep.
They changed this. Do you want to do this too, or keep it at one? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why they changed it, but they have like 5 of them in there now, and all of them are two.
Did they change the requirements at all?
Some of them are a little different. This one I had to find. They renamed them. So.
Oh, that's right, because we
Built a bunch of
we
them.
just redid the Bob Limco challenge.
So they got all these. So the one that we use
Yeah.
is this now, and all of them are. Yeah, it's doing 2 hours.
I don't know if I like that.
Yeah.
User judgment. Like, I don't think we need to get too wild and weird. That new one came out like a week or 2 ago, so. I don't know.
130?
Hmm?
130?
That's fine.
Yeah. Cause I feel like 2 is long as shit.
That's a quarter of a day.
Yeah.
All
I'll do 130.
right, cool. Questions about this? One other concept I want you to know about. What happens when I'm not on any of these? What does router view then? It is. What if I wanted a default? Anybody know what the word for that is? Index. So if I make another one that's like path is just /, name of it is index, and I make an index component. Touch views index.view, and then I go over here, template, put something in there. Oop, didn't like something I did. Import in the view. Expected token. Cool, so now when I go here, I get a default or an index, and that's going to get swapped out if I navigate to something more specific. Questions? default, specifics, we punch a hole through app.view, every route renders inside of that. Yeah.
What's the purpose of having name in the route, like path name component? Like
Sure.
name
Makes it so that our router link can go to something by name.
okay.
How would you go about knowing which router link you selected? Would you just check like the current path?
That is such a good question. Check this out. So if I do, let's go to buddies and then element inspect this buddies link. Whoa, router link active. It got a class. And so if I do router link active, color is green. There we go. So now as we click on these, the active link changes. It's pretty cool.
Easier to follow?
I know.
So simple though. Sometimes do that. We love it. Just one step.
And when we do like things like nested routes, like that's all the way down. If one of the router links is currently part of like the active view hierarchy, it'll get that class. Other questions?
How would you go about doing like protected routes?
Sure. So protected routes you do in the index. And I feel like we talked about this once upon a time. But there's, let's see, let's do a little exploring. Is Barkwire Extreme maybe? So we did this. You do router dot before each, and you get the route you're going to, the route you're coming from, and then whenever you're done doing whatever you need to do, you do next, and then you pass in wherever it's supposed to go. Or if you pass in nothing, it goes where it was trying to go to begin with. So say if the name of the route that I'm trying to go to is protected, check if I'm not logged in. If I'm not logged in, then take me back home. Otherwise, keep going there. If the route isn't that, so like this if condition doesn't pass, then just keep going. And so you just end up with a long ass switch statement or if then or something like that.
So the next takes you to protected.
The next takes you wherever you were going to go. This gets called whenever you route to anything.
Okay.
And so next with no arguments will just take you wherever you were going. But you can also pass in either a string or that exact same route object to go somewhere else. Go to the one with this name. So like that could just as easily be something like next name login, something like that.
So that way you couldn't just like type that route in.
Exactly. Correct. What else? So that's creating links with RouterLink. Now, nested routes. This is not as tricky as it might seem. So if what router view does is it punches a hole in a component and lets us show a component inside of a component. guess what? You can just keep doing that. So if the component that you're showing here also has a router view, you can show components inside that component. So let's say in buddies, buddies has a list of all the buddies, and when you click on one, it keeps that list showing and shows you detail on that buddy. So we're going to make a view called buddy detail. And while we're at it, we're going to make buddy index. So what should end up happening is I've got the app.view that everything's in. We're going to be on buddies, and that's going to be showing this buddies.view that we already have. And it's going to include a list of buddies on the side. And then when we click on one of those, it's going to have a view inside of that. It says Fido and his picture and some shit about Fido. And this is the buddy detail. What's buddy index going to be? Yep, when you haven't clicked on anybody at all, what shows up in that spot? App.view, buddies.view, buddydetail.view. Questions about that conceptually? Cool. The only thing that we need to do to make this work is over on buddies, instead of having the component in here, we have children, which takes an array of components that are routes. So we do something like path should be ID. Name should be buddy detail, and the component should be buddy detail. And import buddy detail from views buddy detail. We'll grab buddy index while we're at it. Path for this one, buddy Windex. So maybe we do something like that. Now let's put something in those components. In the buddy index, please select a buddy from the list. And then, let's see, buddy detail. We're going to make that like an actual component that takes in props and stuff, but for right now, we'll say you're looking at a buddy. Then over at our buddies view, now we need a list of buddies, each of which should link to a buddy. And then what's the other thing that I need to do in this buddies view?
Router view?
Punch a hole through it. Yeah. So I'll make another list of links. And this will say 2. And this one, the syntax on this looks super fucky, but it's really not as bad as it looks. So we're linking to the component named buddy detail, but check out the other thing we need to give it. What else does buddy detail need? Which buddy? Which buddy are we going to? So the way that we do that is params, and then this is also an object, and it's key value pairs. And so you say ID should be, we'll hard code it for right now. All right, so that syntax looks goofy, and you generally see people write it this way. So let's take a look at what we actually gave it, because it's not as bad as it looks. What's the route name? What am I giving it? Cool. We could make a couple of these. This one goes to dog 2. This one goes to dog 3. And now, moment of truth. What did I break? Buddies is defined but never used. Component. Up here in this buddies one, every template has to have exactly one root element. So we can just wrap it in a div. Cool, so if I go to buddies, I see a list of buddies. If I click on one, beep. Hang on. Why do buddies to? Weird.
Yeah. Maybe think of more than just add more.
That's not right. One other thing we needed to do. In here, and give it a router view. So let's start over again. Oh, I see. Okay, so thing number one, Arena was wrong. I think in the new Vue Router you do have to put leading slashes. That might be part of it. That's new. Vaguely irritating. Okay, so let's put one there, 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 and there. All right, and then named route buddies has a default child route. What's the default child route? Buddy index. That's what default means. So when navigating to this named route, the default child route will not be rendered. Remove the name from this route and use the name of the default child route for named links instead. So if I take that out, now instead of naming this buddy index, that is buddies, because it's the default. All right, let's see if this fixes our woes. Yeah, please select a buddy from the list. And so when I select a buddy from the list, you're looking at a buddy. And my URL isn't all fucked up anymore. All right, so all the routing stuff is done. One other thing that we need to do to make this work. So in my buddy detail, I need to get a specific buddy, right? Yowza. Any guesses how we do that? None? I'll give you a hint. So if I go into the created hook on here and console log this $$route.params. Hey, weird. I got the ID that I was given. So I'm on dog 2. And I have access to this 2 variable right there. What do you think I might be able to do with such a thing?
When you have all your dogs in state across ops, when you can see the ID matches, or you're going or find the ID.
Love it. Thank you, Arena. So let's do exactly that. What we're going to do is going to go over to the store, and we're going to throw some dogs in state. Makes me feel like I'm throwing them in jail. All right, so we'll say ID 1 is Bixby. ID 2 is Mesa. And ID 3 is Gonzo.
What if you don't have this, is that you have to do UX in the beginning?
So if you don't want to do that, then let's you can just put it in state for in the data for each of those components. Look it up that way. now over in, instead of listing all these router links individually, since I have like a list of things, how about I get those out of store and just iterate through them to make those? Yeah, Kyle, I think that sounds like a great idea. So I do export default over here, and I make a computed property to grab the dogs. The dogs returns this $store.state.dogs. Now I have an array of dogs. So if on this li, I said v4 dog in dogs and gave it a key of dog ID, now I can create these links dynamically. Hell yeah! The only thing I need to change over here is dog.id and dog.name. Oop, didn't like something I did. Oops, because computed isn't a function. There we go. Hey, there's my dogs. Now, over on buddy detail, I could do something like dog.name and do something like computed dog and use that ID from the route to get a dog. So I'm actually going to put that in the store. There's another one of these keys you can add to the store called getters. Getters are computed properties, derived state. So like getting a particular dog, that's not something that would be in state, like current dog or something like that. It's not an action, doesn't create a mutation. Really, we're trying to get something that we already have. And so I'm gonna make one for dog. And the syntax on this is like kind of fucking weird. Vuex store getters. And the one we're looking for is method style access. So like get dog by ID, takes in state, and then curries that over to the thing that you're passing in, and then you do the function. Pop quiz. What's happening here? It helps if you read it backwards with this line.
It's a function that takes state and then pulls ID from that state and does something with that state.
Almost. All you see is this. Okay, let's do that much. All you see that, what is that? Passing in ID. It's a function. Complete that. It's a function that
Finds the ID that you passed in.
well, yeah, takes in an ID and then returns this shit.
To do,
Corresponding
yeah,
information.
Right.
that has that.
But important thing, function that takes in an ID and then returns this. It's a function that takes in state and returns this function. That's it. So if I say get dog by ID, and it takes in state, ID, and returns this. It turns in state. .dogs.find dog.id is ID.
Is it double or triple in this case?
I would do double because double will coerce it if it's a string and you have a number. Because who gives a shit? It's a string, it's a number, it's 3. I don't care which one it is.
Exactly.
So if you did want to do the triple equals, then what I'd do is coerce them to numbers first, like that. That's also fine. All right. So then dog is going to be this $store.getters.get dog by ID, and then we're going to pass in this $route, just this $route.params.id. Turn it. The dog should be equal to that. Dog is there. Pew pew pew. Let's see if it worked. You're looking to Mesa. You're looking to Bixby. You're looking to Gonzo. You're looking to Mesa. But we can still navigate to all of these things. Products, about. We still have a buddies index. Now we've got nested routes. Ta-da! That's Vue Router. And that's how you create nested routes with Router View. What questions can I answer for you?
How would you create like a nested route that like basically removes the component that was there previously? Like, so you don't want like something happen, you don't want something else to show, and then the route be underneath.
Gotcha. So like if I wanted to, I click on Gonzo and this list goes away?
Yeah.
Cool. This is a super important thing about nested routes. Nested route, or sorry, nested view, like visually, nested route. Otherwise, they're not nested. This has nothing to do with your data hierarchy. It has to do with your visual hierarchy. If those two things are like have that parent-child relationship visually, then they're nested routes. Otherwise, they're not. And so the other way to do this would be that this list is the index, and then you click on that, and then that swaps it out for that. But those are side-by-side routes. They live right next to each other. They don't have a parent-child relationship. Great question.
Can you go to your store real quick?
Yeah.
So is it better to do like these nested views in Vue as opposed to like setting up some sort of like toggle switch and have like a modal pop up window?
Modals are a completely different problem. So with a modal, you're generally working outside of your route hierarchy. And you're saying, I want to take over the screen. I don't give a shit what your route hierarchy is, and I want to show this on the screen. So I'll show you how we did that on the standard site. So this has this modal component, and there's a toggle for whether or not the modal is showing. and that's just exposed via the store. And then what you do is like there's this really cool component called component where you can just pass in a string name of a component. It'll swap it out for that, so you can do dynamic components. And then I have things like the edit form and the add form and all that kind of stuff that you just dynamically render in there. So like, full add iron, there we go. It's got to wake up too. There we go. So if I go to like edit this mod, that's a modal. It doesn't give a shit or know about whatever else might be happening in my route hierarchy. It just takes over the page. That's the modal part of it.
Okay.
They're actually kind of hard to do, but yeah, that's all kind of separate from router.
Yeah, I was asking because in my mod before I used a couple modal windows, but I didn't get them to like take over the screen how I wanted them to be, like kind of centered, like how you
Right.
pretty much how you added that opacity like around the edges and stuff.
Yep, and like that's legit difficult to do. There's plugins and stuff that'll help with it. I've never really liked any of them, and so I tend to do it by hand.
Yeah,
But
they made it kind of weird and wonky. They like push it to like the corner of the screen, it seemed like.
exactly. So, and then inside this modal component, it has a slot. A slot is it's a different way to render a component inside of another component. And that like opacity thing, it's called a scrim. And then like closing the modal, if you click anywhere on that, will do it. But yeah, I had to do it all by hand and it sucked. It still sucks to work with.
Yeah.
Yep, modals are tricky. Cool, what else? All these bodies. Okay, one last tour. And let's think back to let's see. Get this one. Request comes in through URL, hits the router. Router loads in these views, it figures out, all right, what URL match? Oh, cool, it's this one. That means we're on the route named index. Oops, I probably shouldn't have that there. We're on the one named index, and the component that we render inside of that hole that we punch through app.view, that's just going to get swapped out with the index component. That's it, rendering a view. The only thing that changed is now these views can have views inside of them as well as the regular component hierarchies. So we punched a hole, we got the index.view file, and it says, welcome to back, wow. Cool. I click on that products link. Cool, take me to the route named products. Over here, cool, this is the one named products. We should render the products component inside of that. So the products component is just that. And so we click on that link and we see that. Just gets swapped out for the router view. Then we click on buddies. Buddies is looking for a route named buddies. Cool, well, that's this one. Ah, interesting, this one has children. And so its index route is the buddy index. And so if I click on that buddies link, I should see the buddy index. Please select a buddy from the list. As well as the stuff from this. So this buddies component also has a hole punched in it. We're looking up all the dogs in the store. We're linking through them to create these links. We punch a hole through it, and the default route, the index, shows up inside of there. Looks like that. We click on Mesa, and Mesa is going to go to buddy detail as well as Mesa's ID, which is 2. So we'll go to /buddies/2, which is this one. That ID, that 2, becomes available as a param in the buddy detail thing. So buddy index is no longer getting rendered inside of buddies' hole. Punch through that, and we get buddy detail. Buddy detail looks up the dog of the ID that we passed in, makes that available as a computed property, makes that show up in the template. And that's creating nested routes with Router Vue. What questions have we? Oh, I said that like a Monty Python wizard. It's pretty straightforward. And when you inevitably forget what these things are supposed to look like, or the syntax or whatever, the warnings you get on the console, pretty good. And then on top of that, the docs for these, also pretty good. Awesome. Thank you so much.